Today's video is about squash. We are starting with preparing the bed, making the rows with an old-time push plow, fertilizing and planting the seed. We're using 888 fertilizer because we just don't have enough compost to cover every bed that we have. We just plant way too much for that. It would be nice if we did. We plant in a row, but we don't put seed every few inches. We plant about 2 to 3 feet apart when we are planting squash because the plants get so big that they would crowd each other out. You're going to see the progression of the plant growth and end up in the kitchen preparing the squash for the freezer.
Squash, and the squash is just coming up, so we're really tickled about that. And this bed is the 3 rows of yellow squash. Are looking really pretty. They're growing really well. But day before yesterday, Ashley and I picked 2 bushels of yellow squash off of those plants. And this morning I picked a bushel. So they have done really well, still doing really well. A lot of blooms. The plants are not as pretty as they were because once they start producing, the plant suffers. You know, it goes downhill some. And you can see I've got the sprinkler on it before it gets in the full sun because everything is so dry. A closer look at the squash from behind, and you can see they're not as happy as they used to be. And when I came back here, I realized I evidently skipped a bush because I don't know if you can see them. There's a couple of squash in there. So when I'm finished filming, I'll have to come back and get those.
Go ahead.
Once we brought the squash in and they've been washed, sometimes I do it with just the squash. I hold it in my hand with a paring knife. But some of these we let get a little bigger than that, and so it's easier then for me to just do it on the cutting board. And so I just cut the ends off. And you know, it's not a rocket science. It's just I don't try to get every little piece exactly the same size. I just cut. There's too many of them to try to get every little thing exactly the same. Squash is going to go to mush for the most part when you cook it anyway, so it's not going to matter that much. But that's what we do, and then we put it over in the skillet, or if you wanted to use a pot, my mom uses a pot. I just always use a great big skillet type pan. So, but whatever you choose, whatever your pan of choice is, that is fine. And we always do it with onions, and not just any onions. Now, for us, it's up to you how you do it, but we do it with sweet onions. And when Vidalia's, the actual Vidalia brand from Vidalia, Georgia, are in season, we use Vidalia's. Otherwise, we use sweet onions from wherever else we can get them. And butter. You can't do anything without butter. Butter and onions and squash. It's a very good thing, to quote Martha Stewart. Okay, the last thing we do after they're done, and let me say here that we cook our squash. We don't blanch them. Now, you may love blanched squash that's been in the freezer, but we don't. And so we cook our squash just like we were going to eat it for lunch today. And so then we cook it and we put it in the Ziploc bags. I mark the date and that it's squash and onions. We do, like we told you earlier, we do onions with ours. It's already had salt put on it and everything. So when we're ready to eat it, all we have to do is take it out of the freezer and let it thaw out a little bit and put it in a pan and heat it through good. So anyway, this is our last step. I just get it out. It's never pretty, it always makes a mess. But anyway, That's enough in that bag. Then I just take a paper towel and get the excess squash, if there is any, out of the where it's going to zip. Get the air out of it. And then I lay it out flat. And that's the way it goes in the freezer. I'll stack up several of them. I'll lay them out flat. And that way they don't take so much room up in the freezer. And there you are. Squash is easy from seed to freezer.